What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism.
Believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well.
But that's not, it doesn't say I'm white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not what that. What stat are you talking about?
All right.
Bill Maher has officially hit his limit with The View, especially with Whoopi Goldberg, and it's easy to see why. Whoopi's recent comments have grown increasingly outlandish, even causing some of her own supporters to step back. Maher didn't hold back, calling her plunge into what he described as woke absurdity dangerous, and slammed The View as a toxic echo chamber harming public discourse. He said the show steers people away from critical thinking, open debate, and reality. The latest controversy exploded during a tense exchange between Alyssa Farah Griffin and Whoopi about the harsh oppression women and minorities face in Iran, mandatory hijabs, imprisonment, public executions, and persecution of LGBTQ+ people. Alyssa laid out the facts, but Whoopi's response was so shockingly off-base it quickly went viral. It's a moment you've got to see to believe. Brace yourself for this next-level take.
Tell the usual suspects on the far left that the saying is, when you're in a hole, stop digging. You just lost a crazy contest to an actual crazy person. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Yes, if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. They don't want your pity. And black people can't afford to indulge rich white people's need to endlessly flagellate themselves. They just want prices to go down and good jobs and the police when you call them.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class? Yeah. I mean, again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons, and so, okay. Time will tell, but what do y'all think?
Let me tell.
First it was Morning Joe, now it's Bill Maher landing in The View's crosshairs, specifically Sunny Hostin, who's been clashing with just about everyone lately. Tensions are rising, tempers are flaring, and yes, we've got the footage. Things got so heated, Whoopi Goldberg had to step in to keep things from boiling over. Why? Because ratings are slipping, nerves are frayed, and no one at that table seems willing to confront the tough truth about what really happened in this election. So, what exactly did Bill Maher say that sent Sunny over the edge? Let's take a look.
I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And, you know, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that is not true, this is by education. Those who attended college voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't.
But
and I've said that. Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so.
Let me be clear. I think Bill Maher was absolutely right. It's not complicated. Just that simple. Frankly, it's frustrating. They keep pushing identity politics as the core of everything, but the moment someone calls it out, they flip the script and accuse Republicans of doing the same. So which is it? Make it make sense. Even if I gave Whoopi the benefit of the doubt, say she had a plan, the truth is she didn't follow through. Not as vice president, and certainly not with Biden as president. So why should anyone gamble on promises they already had the power to deliver and didn't? I'm sorry, but no thanks. We've seen the track record, and empty rhetoric isn't cutting it anymore.
his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
and whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
Black people
they thought that he was reflective.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had historically. I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny, you're missing it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college degrees.
But the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not, let me get that. What stat are you talking about?
Let me just dissect the
Yes, you can.
Wait, hold on. Calm down, everybody. Just take a breath. Take a breath.
Okay.
No, this isn't some inconvenient truth. It's just a flawed perception of truth. Here's what I mean. Analyzing voting patterns by race or education doesn't automatically imply those voters are racist. If anything, it reveals something deeper. Look at Joe Biden's 2020 numbers. They were significantly stronger than Kamala Harris's. That alone undermines the entire argument. Biden, a white man with a history of controversial, racially charged remarks, including the infamous "if you don't vote for me, you ain't black," still outperformed Harris. So ask yourself, if racism were truly the driving force, would that have happened? Is this really about race, or is it about leadership, trust, and performance? Maybe it's time to consider that the answer lies elsewhere entirely.
Says that folks see everything through the lens of racism and racism. Not everything, but if you're not seeing racism and racism in America, then you need to clean your lenses.
But
because, you know, so this is something that I also find interesting, that when Democrats and liberals talk about racism, it's immediately labeled as identity politics, which has a negative connotation. It's a term that Republicans have coined, and it's been very effective. But when Donald Trump goes to Miami and talks to Cubans, that's not identity politics. When Donald Trump goes to Dearborn, Michigan, and promises Arabs something, that's not identity politics. When he goes to Jews and promises them the opposite, that's not identity politics.
So I think it's important.
Yeah. See, here's the difference with Republicans. When they lean into identity issues, at least it often comes across as sincere. It's not drenched in woke ideology. It tends to be rooted in something more practical, common sense, meeting people where they are, showing up, making connections. That's what Trump did. He went into communities Republicans traditionally ignored because he spoke directly, promised to represent everyone, and made the effort. Whether you like him or not, he showed up. Now, let's be honest. Kamala Harris was a weak candidate. She had vulnerabilities all over the map. If you're running against her, it's fair game to attack those weak spots. That isn't cruelty, it's strategy. Politics is a competition. You go after the gaps. And Harris had a lot of them. Yes, there's racism and misogyny in America. Yes, some voters cast ballots through that lens. But was it the deciding factor in this election? No. So why obsess over something that wasn't the X factor? The bigger issues were delay after delay. Economy, immigration, rising costs, foreign policy messes, and Democrats seemed almost oblivious. They ignored their own voters, brushed aside what people said mattered most, and now they're paying the price. Let's unpack some of the data Bill Maher used because it cuts right to the heart of what went wrong. One chart showed the percentage of people agreeing that America is the greatest country in the world. Hispanics 75%, Black Americans 58%, white progressives just 31%. That alone says a lot. Another survey asked whether racism is built into society. Hispanics 38%, Black Americans 62%, white progressives a staggering 75%. So let me get this straight. White progressives claim to be more aware of racism than the folks who live its consequences every day. Make that make sense. Now add border security. 49% of Hispanics said yes to tougher enforcement. White progressives only 15%. That gap? That's exactly what cost Democrats this time. Then there's the reaction: progressive Twitter, blue sky, erupting over Maher's "Ditch Identity Politics" headline. Lots of rage, few counterarguments. For many it's just noise. Ignore the base and center us, dude bros say. The demand is, stop ignoring reality. Use common sense. Because the rest of America's not the problem, your broken strategy is. Democrats offered a lot: reduced taxes, protecting Social Security, healthcare access, constitutional rights. But of all that, only one issue in that list cracked the top 3 concerns for voters: cost of living, immigration, crime, safety. The rest didn't even register. So here's a question. If you had to pick one thing that's been the biggest downfall for the Democratic Party, what would it be? Drop your answers in the comments, because from where I'm standing, it's the progressives who've hijacked the party and pushed it so far left that even moderates are asking, what happened to us?